Hi, it's Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky with my Pans and Plans. What a week. First of all, let me just thank all of you who texted or emailed or called to inquire how I was yesterday. I was fine all day because I was in my office. We were on a shutdown. Most of the members actually were not on the floor of the House because we're, for COVID's sake, minimizing that number. So I was in my office in the Rayburn building, and a staffer was with me, and we hunkered down in place. We turned off the lights, we turned down the volume on anything, and we tried to minimize anybody knowing that there was anyone in this office. And that went on for a very long time. Then we sat down and we were looking at C-SPAN, and it was the most devastating thing I have ever seen in my life. I think in some ways, emotionally, I'm feeling it even more today than yesterday, where we were just taking it in one frame at a time. But to see people, representatives, their staff running, fleeing from the invaders, the people who were trying to harm our democracy, who were saying that the election really belonged to Donald Trump, who were carrying weapons in many cases, who were wearing T-shirts that said all the MAGA stuff, and then also Civil War, January 6, 2021. Imagine. The part that's unbelievable is that they were led by the President of the United States of America, who had called them to arms to the Capitol. Just really incomprehensible, this deliberate attack by the president on our democracy. And then the really unthinkable happened. The Capitol itself, the most precious symbol of our democracy physically, the Capitol was invaded. And we saw people sitting in the chair of Speaker Nancy Pelosi and vandalizing her office, and very, very proud of themselves. We saw shots and heard them being fired into the chamber of the House of Representatives and outside of it as well. We saw people outside, I think demonstrating is not quite the word, threatening. And we heard the newest member from the state of Illinois, Mary Miller, a woman that makes us have the record number of women in our delegation in Illinois. I was pretty excited to meet her and have been calling her my new colleague. And then found out that what she said to this crowd, because it was real red meat for them, was that Hitler was right. It was right about at least one thing, she said, and that's what, but for influencing the children, whatever that means, influencing them to be anti-Semites and racists. I actually called on her to resign, but also authored a letter that would to the entire delegation, Republicans and Democrats, to condemn her language. And unfortunately, only the Democrats, all of us though, did sign that letter of commendation. In the meantime, there was good news yesterday, really good news, that the leadership now of the United States Senate will be in Democratic hands. So that was a major, major change and a major result, which got very little attention yesterday because this attack was so unusual and so amazingly frightening. One of the things that has to be done is a full investigation of, quite simply, the lack of protection, the lack of security. How could this happen? We knew that this was going to happen because Donald Trump had called for it a long time in advance, the date, bring your guns, bring your signs, etc. And so it was no surprise to anyone that there was going to be an incident at the Capitol today. I don't know if it wasn't taken seriously enough, or there just, wasn't the same concern, for example, as we saw with Black Lives Matter, where the law enforcement was lined up twofold in front of these peaceful protesters. And of the people who came, there were 14,000 people that were arrested in the peaceful Black Lives Matter movement. And yesterday, 52 were arrested, even though there were thousands of people who had come for the wrong reasons. And Donald Trump eventually said that, it's time for them to go home, but that he loved them so much, and he understood their anguish, and he understood their pain. So it was truly unprecedented and heart-wrenching, mind-blowing day yesterday, that even as I relive it today, my heart really hurts. I also believe that it's not over. I think that Donald Trump is now the most dangerous person on this planet. He is in office for another 2 weeks, a little less, 13 days. And that even in this time, bad things could happen. I think this is a president who believes, if I'm going down as much as possible, I'm taking y'all with me. And that could mean a host of things, because even though Twitter and Facebook, too little too late, took him off, silenced his space, he has the nuclear codes in his pocket. This is a very powerful person, being the president of the United States. And so I have signed on a letter to the vice president calling for the imposition of the 25th Amendment to the Constitution, which basically says that this president is not fit to be in office. And there's been some Republicans as well who support that idea. What it would take is all of the cabinet members to agree to that. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer asked to talk to him about that. He didn't take their call, but they did leave the message that otherwise the Democrats would be calling for impeachment, or maybe some of the Republicans as well would be calling for the impeachment of the president. And so we're starting to see a crack in the ice. And I think there are a lot of people in this country, supporters of Donald Trump, who do believe that he went overboard, a step too far, in the kind of attack on our government, on our places of the democracy in our country, and that it is time for him to go. In the meantime, too, the Sergeant at Arms is no longer the Sergeant at Arms. The head of the Capitol Police, no longer the head. Why we didn't have more equipment, why we didn't have more law enforcement protecting us, I'll never know. I did see video, at least in one case, and I don't want to blame the Capitol Police. Most of them are heroes. One individual member of the Capitol Police taking a selfie along with one of these invaders, and another helping to move the blockade so that people could get in. I mean, it's just really shocking. I saw Colin Powell on television this morning saying this is the worst breach of security that he has ever seen. He was absolutely furious. So we have to have an absolutely full investigation of that. And even as we go forward, we have to know exactly what has happened. So what was the rationale of all these people being here, of the president being so angry? It all has to do with the certification of the vote, which he believes was fraudulent, that he won the presidency, that he won it big, and that anyone who would endorse the Electoral College report was a traitor to him personally and was destroying the sanctity of elections. And of course, none of that is right. All of it has been a lie from the moment that the election took place last November, and so that's what happened, state by state. There were protests in a couple of states, but state by state, and then the vice president had to read off the outcome of the electoral votes. And what was the result? It certified the election and the correctness of the election. So that's what the president has been obsessing about, and that's what the electoral vote was all about. So yesterday, when the election was certified, we also had really a historic day, and that was the election of two Democrats to represent Georgia. We have Reverend Warnock, who will be only the 11th African American to ever be in the whole history of the United States, the 11th African American, which is a great success. We have John Ossoff, who is the millennial. We don't have many of those, or really any of those, and he's Jewish. So we have two minorities elected to the Senate of the United States, and that definitely is going to make a difference. I believe what we're going to see, among other things, is that because many of the bills that have been sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk have been freed, because I think there are a number of Republicans that will vote for, maybe not the majority, but that will vote for some of these important bills that address the needs of the American people once they have the opportunity to do that. And I think one of them would be universal background checks for guns, which we know is supported by something like 90% of Americans as a common sense piece of legislation. So some good history and some bad history was finally certified yesterday as well. So I wanted to talk to you about the COVID virus, which didn't get a lot of attention yesterday, but still goes on in the state of Illinois. More than 1 million cases of the COVID virus have been found in the state of Illinois during this pandemic. 1 million people just in our state alone. Yesterday we had 8,752 and 57 new cases and 177 deaths. So despite the fact that the vaccine in some places is available. Now, I put out a picture of myself getting the vaccine, and there were reactions really kind of on both sides. You know, why are you at the head of the line? For one thing, I qualify because of age, but the other, that members of Congress have been able to get the vaccine and hopefully be able to continue to have our government operate without getting the virus. As I said, people now, we were told by the governor, over 65 years of old, are in the next phase of those who are eligible to get the vaccine, and I certainly am going to encourage that to happen as quickly as possible. As you know, there have been some distribution problems, and partly that reflects again how the federal government has refused to take responsibility. They call it Operation Warp Speed, and it has been pretty good in terms of the development of the vaccine, But in terms of getting it around, it's been yet another failure, leaving it to the states who really don't have all the resources. I think our governor and our mayors are doing as good a job as possible, but without any real help and coordination from the federal government. And so we have to continue to be mindful. We need to continue to wear masks. And by the way, hardly anyone at this riot yesterday was wearing a mask. Of course, that's become somehow this political issue. I heard of one situation where a young woman staffer was literally chased and harassed because she had the audacity to wear a mask. So we're still facing a lot of challenges in this country. We haven't seen the last of that. We need to all take care, be careful. But I have to tell you that despite all this, I believe that our democracy is still strong. I know that there will be an inauguration of the next president on January 20th, and I know that we have many opportunities to bring some relief to Americans who are suffering. And I know I'm talking to many of them, and make sure that we continue to help individuals, to provide food, to provide help, housing, health care, small businesses. That work continues. So I'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where my handle is @Jan Schakowsky.